In this video, we're taking a gentle journey back through time to explore something we take entirely for granted in our modern world, a peaceful night's sleep. We're traveling to medieval times, somewhere between the years 1000 and 1500, to understand why you would struggle to sleep if you found yourself there. Sleep in the medieval period was nothing like the sleep we know today. There were no soft mattresses, no central heating, no quiet neighborhoods, no electric lights to turn off when you were ready. The very rhythm of sleep itself was different. The night was longer, darker, and filled with sounds and sensations that would seem utterly strange to us now. As we walk through this journey, we'll experience an evening and night in medieval times. We'll feel the cold air, hear the sounds, understand the fears, and discover why something as simple as sleeping through the night was actually quite complicated. So, settle in, get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and let's drift back through the centuries together. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're watching from. Let's begin. The sun is setting over a small village in England. It's autumn, perhaps the year 1320. You live in a modest cottage with your family. You're not wealthy, but you're not among the poorest either. You have a home with 2 rooms, a small plot of land, and enough to eat most days. As the daylight fades, the temperature begins to drop. There's a chill in the air that makes you pull your woolen cloak tighter around your shoulders. The sky turns from blue to purple to deep indigo. You've been working since dawn, as everyone does. Your body is tired, your muscles ache from the day's labor. You're ready for rest. But night in medieval times doesn't mean simply going to bed and drifting off to sleep. The approach of darkness brings with it a series of tasks, preparations, and concerns that must be addressed before you can even think about closing your eyes. First, there's the matter of security. As the last light drains from the sky, you move through your cottage, checking the door. It's a heavy wooden door, rough-hewn and fitted with iron hinges that creak when it moves. There's a bolt on the inside, a thick piece of wood that slides into brackets on either side of the frame. You slide it closed with a solid thunk that echoes slightly in the small space. The windows are another concern. They're not windows as we know them, with glass panes and locks. Glass windows are for the wealthy, for churches and manor houses. Your windows are simply openings in the wall, covered with wooden shutters. During the day, you keep them open to let in light and air. Now, as night approaches, you close them one by one, securing them with simple wooden pegs. With the shutters closed, the interior of your cottage becomes quite dark. There's still a fire burning in the hearth, the central feature of your main room. It's been burning all day, used for cooking, for warmth, for comfort. The fire is never allowed to go out completely if it can be helped, because starting a new fire is laborious. You need to strike sparks from flint and steel, coax them into tinder, blow gently until flames appear. It's much easier to keep a fire going, banking it at night with ashes so it will still have embers come morning. The firelight flickers across the walls, casting moving shadows. The walls are wattle and daub, a mixture of wooden lattice covered with a paste of mud, straw, and dung. They're not perfectly smooth. They're uneven and rough, and the firelight makes every bump and crevice stand out. The shadows seem almost alive, shifting and dancing. You move closer to the fire to warm yourself before bed. The heat is intense on your face and hands, but your back remains cold. Medieval heating is always like this, intense warmth on one side, chill on the other. You turn slowly like a rotisserie, trying to warm all sides of your body. Your family is gathered around the fire as well. Your spouse, your children, perhaps an elderly parent. Everyone is tired. The day has been long. If you're a farming family, there's been work in the fields or tending animals. If you practice a trade, there's been labor at your craft. There are no weekends in the medieval world, no regular days off. There are holy days, feast days, but they're scattered through the year. Most days are work days, from sunrise to sunset. Supper has been eaten. It was a simple meal, as most meals are. Perhaps a thick pottage, a kind of stew made with whatever vegetables are available. Some grain, maybe a bit of salted meat if you're fortunate. Bread, dark and heavy, made from rye or barley rather than wheat. Ale to drink, because the water from the well can't always be trusted, and ale, with its fermentation, is safer. The meal sits heavy in your stomach. You feel full, perhaps a bit sluggish. The fire's warmth is making you drowsy. Your eyes grow heavy. But there's still work to be done before sleep. The fire must be banked. You take the poker, a long iron rod, and carefully spread the burning logs apart. You rake ashes from the edges of the hearth over the coals, covering them but not smothering them entirely. The flames die down to a dim red glow. The room becomes darker, the shadows deeper. You need light to make your way to bed, so you light a rushlight. It's a simple thing, a rush plant that's been dried and dipped in fat. It burns with a weak, flickering flame that smells faintly of tallow. It provides just enough light to see by, but it's nothing like a candle, and certainly nothing like the electric lights we're accustomed to. The light wavers and jumps with every movement of air. It creates more shadows than it dispels. Holding the rushlight, you make your way toward the sleeping area. In your two-room cottage, the second room is where the family sleeps. If you had only one room, you'd sleep in the same space where you cook and eat, perhaps on the other side of the fire, or in a loft above, reached by a ladder. The sleeping room is small and bare. There's barely enough space for the bed and perhaps a chest where clothing and a few possessions are kept. The floor is packed earth, covered with rushes or straw. It's slightly uneven, and it's cold beneath your feet, even through your shoes. The air in the sleeping room is different from the main room. It's colder because there's no fire here. Your breath mists slightly in the chill. You can smell the mustiness of the straw on the floor, the earthy scent of the walls, and underlying everything, the smell of bodies, because bathing is infrequent and soap is a luxury. This is where we'll pause for now. You're standing in the doorway of your sleeping room, rushlight in hand, looking at the bed, where you'll attempt to sleep. You're tired. Your body aches for rest, but as we'll discover, achieving that rest in medieval times is far more complicated than simply lying down and closing your eyes. The night ahead is long and dark and filled with challenges. The very structure of sleep is different here. The bed itself is nothing like a modern bed. The sounds of the night are beginning, sounds you cannot escape, sounds that will wake you repeatedly through the dark hours. Let's continue by stepping into that room and examining the place where medieval people actually slept, and why it was so different from the comfortable beds we know today. You step into the sleeping room, the rushlight held before you, and approach the bed. This is where you'll spend the dark hours, where you'll try to find rest after the long day. But this bed is nothing like the bed you know in your modern life. Let's look at it carefully, because understanding the medieval bed is essential to understanding why sleep was so difficult. The bed frame, if you're fortunate enough to have one, is made of rough wood. It's a simple construction, 4 posts driven into the floor or connected by a base frame, with boards or ropes stretched between them to support the mattress. The wood is unfinished, unsanded. You can feel splinters if you run your hand along it. There's no headboard, no footboard, just the basic structure needed to keep the sleeping surface off the ground. Why off the ground? Because the floor is cold and often damp, and sleeping directly on it would be uncomfortable and unhealthy. Even the few inches of height that the bed frame provides makes a difference. It puts you above the worst of the cold that settles at ground level. It keeps you away from the insects and vermin that move across the floor at night. Many people, of course, don't have even this basic bed frame. The poor, the peasants, the laborers sleep on the floor itself, on piles of straw or hay covered with whatever cloth they can spare. This is where the phrase "making your bed" comes from, the literal act of piling up straw to create a sleeping surface. Each night, you'd gather the straw into a pile. Each morning, you'd scatter it again or push it aside to make room for daytime activities. But you have a bed frame, modest as it is. On top of the frame is the mattress, and here's where things get truly different from what you're used to. The mattress is a large sack made of rough cloth, ticking they call it, stuffed with whatever material is available. If you're relatively well off, it might be stuffed with wool, shorn from sheep and carded but not woven. The wool is lumpy and uneven. It compresses under your weight in some places and bunches up in others. You have to shake it out and redistribute it regularly, or you end up with all the filling at the edges and nothing in the middle where you actually lie. If you're less prosperous, the mattress might be stuffed with straw, like the bedding of the very poor, but at least it's contained in a sack and raised off the ground. Straw is prickly. The sharp ends poke through the ticking and jab you as you lie down. It rustles and crackles with every movement. It compresses flat quite quickly, so you're essentially lying on a thin layer of crushed straw over hard boards or ropes. And straw attracts insects. Fleas, in particular, love straw bedding. They nest in it, breed in it, and emerge at night to feed on you. Some mattresses are stuffed with feathers, if you're fortunate. Feathers are a luxury, collected over time from the geese and chickens kept in the yard, plucked when the birds are slaughtered for food. A feather mattress is softer, warmer, more comfortable. But it's still lumpy, still needs constant shaking and redistributing, and it still harbors insects. On top of the mattress, there's bedding. Again, this depends on wealth, but for most people, it's fairly simple. There might be a sheet, a large piece of linen or hemp cloth that covers the mattress. It's rough against the skin, not like modern soft cotton. It's woven on a hand loom, and the threads are uneven. The fabric is coarse. Over you, for warmth, there are blankets, wool blankets, heavy and thick, woven from the same sheep's wool that might stuff the mattress. The blankets are scratchy against bare skin, so you sleep in your underclothes, your chemise or shirt, the same garment you've worn all day under your outer clothes. You don't have pajamas as we think of them. The concept doesn't exist yet. You simply remove your outer layers, your tunic or dress, your hose, your shoes, and sleep in the thin linen or hemp undergarment. If it's very cold, you might keep more clothes on. There's no shame in sleeping fully dressed when the alternative is freezing. Pillows exist, but they're not as common as you might think. Many people sleep without them, lying flat on the mattress. If you have a pillow, it's another sack stuffed with straw or wool or feathers, the same materials as the mattress. It's lumpy and hard, more like a cushion than a modern soft pillow. The bed itself occupies most of the space in the small sleeping room. And here's something that might surprise you. You don't sleep alone in this bed. Privacy, as we understand it, barely exists in medieval times. If you're married, you sleep with your spouse. If you have young children, they sleep with you too. The bed is a family sleeping place. Infants sleep between the parents or at the mother's breast. Toddlers sleep crosswise at the foot of the bed or tucked in beside their parents. Older children might have their own smaller mattress on the floor, or they might still share the main bed. Everyone sleeps in close proximity. You can feel the warmth of the bodies beside you. You can hear their breathing, their movements, their snores. You can smell them, the scent of their bodies after a day of work, unwashed because washing thoroughly is rare. This closeness has advantages. The shared body heat helps keep everyone warm on cold nights, and in medieval times, nights are cold indeed. Remember, there's no heating in this room. The fire in the main room has been banked. No warmth reaches here. The walls are thin, and the cold air seeps through gaps in the shutters, through cracks in the walls, through the very fabric of the building. Your breath mists in the air as you undress. You remove your outer tunic, folding it carefully because you don't have many clothes, and you must take care of what you have. You keep on your undershift. You sit on the edge of the bed to remove your shoes, simple leather things tied with thongs. The bed creaks under your weight. If it's a rope bed, the ropes stretch and give. If it's boards, they creak and groan. You lift the blankets and slide beneath them. The bedding is cold. It's been sitting here all day in this unheated room, and it's absorbed the chill. You gasp slightly as the cold fabric touches your skin. You curl up, drawing your knees toward your chest, trying to conserve heat. Your spouse is already in bed, or climbing in after you. Your children are settling down, whispering to each other in the darkness. You tell them to hush, to go to sleep. Their voices fade to silence. You lie there in the dark, feeling the lumps in the mattress beneath you. There's one lump right under your left shoulder blade. You shift, trying to find a more comfortable position. The mattress rustles. The bed frame creaks. You disturb your spouse, who mutters and shifts as well. The blankets are heavy, but not quite warm yet. You're shivering slightly. You press closer to your spouse, sharing warmth. Gradually, very gradually, the chill begins to fade. The bed starts to warm from your body heat. The cold becomes merely cool, then almost comfortable. But comfort is relative. The mattress is still lumpy. Your shoulder still aches from the day's work, and the firmness of the bed doesn't help. Your hip bone presses into a particularly thin spot in the mattress, where you can feel the hard boards beneath. You shift again, trying to find a better position. The pillow under your head is hard and doesn't provide much support. Your neck is at a slightly awkward angle. You scrunch the pillow, trying to shape it, but it doesn't really cooperate. The stuffing inside just moves around without actually becoming more comfortable. And then, there are the insects. You try not to think about them, but you can feel them. A tiny tickling sensation on your ankle. A prick, sharp and sudden on your side. Fleas. They live in the bedding, in the mattress, in the straw on the floor. They're a constant presence in medieval life, so common that people barely mention them. Everyone has fleas. Everyone is bitten regularly. You scratch at the bite on your ankle, and the movement disturbs more fleas. You feel another bite, this one on your arm. Lice are another problem. They live in hair, in clothing, in bedding. You can sometimes feel them moving, a crawling sensation on your scalp or on your skin. It's unpleasant, but again, it's normal. Everyone has lice. Only the very wealthy can afford to keep them at bay with frequent changes of linen and regular attention. You scratch your head, then force yourself to stop. Scratching makes it worse. It makes the itching more noticeable. Better to try to ignore it, to let your mind drift elsewhere. But lying here in the dark, trying to sleep, it's hard to ignore the physical discomforts. The lumpy mattress, the hard pillow, the itching of insect bites, the cold air on your face above the blankets, the slight dampness in the room, because medieval buildings are never truly dry. The earthen floor, the permeable walls, the general lack of heating all mean that humidity is high and dampness is constant. You can smell the dampness, a musty scent underlying everything. You can smell the straw on the floor, going slightly moldy. You can smell the bodies pressed close together in the bed, the scent of sweat and skin. Your children have finally fallen silent. You can hear their breathing, slow and steady. They're asleep already, the way children can fall asleep quickly despite discomfort. Your spouse's breathing is also changing, becoming deeper, more regular. You close your eyes and try to will yourself to sleep. You're tired enough. Your body certainly wants rest, but your mind is still active, still aware of all the discomforts, still listening to the sounds that are beginning to emerge from the darkness around you. Because the night in medieval times is not silent, not at all. As you lie there trying to sleep, the sounds begin to build. And these sounds, more than perhaps anything else, are why you would struggle to sleep in medieval times. Let's listen to what you would hear, lying there in your medieval bed, trying to find rest. The darkness around you is complete. With the shutters closed and no fire in this room, there is no light at all. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. This is a darkness that modern people rarely experience. We have streetlights shining through windows, digital clocks glowing, devices with LED indicators, light pollution from cities that makes the night never truly dark. But here, in medieval times, the darkness is absolute and profound. In this darkness, your other senses become heightened. You become acutely aware of every sound, every sensation, and the sounds of the medieval night are constant and varied and often disturbing. First, there are the sounds from within your own home. Your house is made of wood and wattle and daub, organic materials that expand and contract with temperature changes. As the night grows colder, the house settles. The timbers creak. The walls make small popping sounds. Each noise is sharp in the silence, making you tense, pulling you back from the edge of sleep. You hear mice. They live in the walls, in the thatch of the roof, and they emerge at night to forage for food. You can hear them scurrying across the floor of the main room, their tiny claws making scratching sounds. You hear them in the walls, rustling through the thatch above your head. Occasionally there's a squeak, sharp and sudden, as one mouse encounters another. Mice are a constant presence in medieval homes. There's no way to keep them out entirely. The walls have gaps. The floor is earth. The thatch roof is full of spaces where mice can nest. They eat stored grain. They chew on anything made of cloth or leather. They leave droppings everywhere. But there's little that can be done about them. You might have a cat, and cats help keep the mouse population under control, but they never eliminate the mice entirely. Speaking of the cat, you can hear it now, moving through the main room. There's a soft thump as it jumps down from some perch. The padding of its paws. A low, rumbling purr. The cat is hunting, stalking the mice it can hear and smell. You hear a sudden flurry of movement, a frantic squeaking, then silence. The cat has caught something. You hear the crunching sounds as it eats its prey. It's not a pleasant sound, but it's a normal part of the night. If you have chickens, and most families do, you might hear them settling in their roost. Chickens sleep in a small coop or shelter attached to the house or nearby in the yard. They make soft clucking sounds as they arrange themselves for the night. Sometimes something disturbs them, a fox passing near the coop perhaps, or a weasel trying to find a way in, and they erupt in loud squawking and flapping. The sound is alarming, sudden and loud in the quiet night, and it jolts you from sleep if you've managed to drift off. Your spouse shifts beside you, turning over. The bed creaks loudly. The ropes or boards supporting the mattress groan under the changing weight distribution. Your spouse mutters something incomprehensible, still mostly asleep. Their elbow bumps against your side. You shift away slightly, trying to maintain your comfortable position, but the movement makes the bed creak again and disturbs the children. One of your children whimpers in their sleep, a soft sound of distress. Perhaps they're dreaming, or perhaps they're cold, or perhaps they're just settling deeper into sleep. The whimper fades. Their breathing evens out again. You lie still, trying not to move, trying not to make any sound that might disturb anyone else or keep yourself awake. You focus on breathing slowly and steadily. You try to empty your mind, to let go of the day's worries and the body's discomforts. And then you hear the sounds from outside, from beyond the walls of your home. And these sounds are even more varied and sometimes more disturbing. Your cottage is part of a village, a cluster of similar small buildings arranged around a common area or along a single road. Your neighbors live close by, their walls just a few feet from yours, and sound travels easily through the thin walls. You can hear your neighbors. You can hear a man coughing, a harsh, rattling sound that goes on and on. Illness is common in medieval times. People suffer from chronic coughs, from consumption, from agues and fevers. The man coughs repeatedly, each spasm sounding painful. You hear him spit. You hear the low murmur of a woman's voice, his wife, perhaps, speaking to him. The coughing gradually subsides. From another house you hear a baby crying. The sound is thin and wailing, the unmistakable sound of an infant in distress. Perhaps the baby is hungry, or needs changing, or is simply fretful. You hear the mother's voice, trying to soothe it. The crying continues for a long time. You find yourself tensing with each wail, unable to ignore it, unable to fully relax while that sound continues. Eventually, the baby quiets, either fed or comforted into silence. But by then, you're fully awake again, your earlier drowsiness dispelled. You stare into the darkness, waiting for sleep to return. You hear a dog barking somewhere in the village. One bark, then another, then a whole chorus of barks as other dogs join in. Dogs are common in medieval villages, kept for guarding and hunting and companionship. They're semi-feral, often aggressive, and they bark at anything that moves in the night. Perhaps they've detected a fox, or a stranger passing through, or perhaps they're just barking at each other. The sound echoes through the village, loud and jarring. Someone shouts at the dogs, a man's voice raised in anger, telling them to be quiet. The barking subsides, becoming intermittent woofs and growls, then finally silence. But the damage is done. You're wide awake now, your heart beating faster from the sudden noise. You hear footsteps outside, someone walking along the muddy road that runs past your cottage. Who would be out at this hour? It's deep night now, long past the time when honest people are in bed. The footsteps are slow and uneven, accompanied by a strange dragging sound. Your imagination immediately supplies possibilities. A thief, looking for a house to rob, a drunk, stumbling home from the alehouse, someone ill or injured, seeking help, or worse, something supernatural, some night creature or restless spirit. Fear of the supernatural is very real in medieval times. People believe in ghosts, in demons, in spirits that walk the night. They believe that the dead sometimes rise from their graves, that witches fly through the darkness, that all manner of uncanny things can happen between sunset and sunrise. The night is a time of danger, both physical and spiritual. You lie very still, listening to the footsteps pass by your cottage. They fade into the distance. You hear nothing more. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Whoever or whatever it was, it's gone now. But your sense of security has been shaken. You are acutely aware of how vulnerable you are, lying here in the dark. The door is bolted, yes, but the bolt is just wood. A determined person could break through. The shutters are closed, but they could be forced open. The walls themselves are not particularly strong. Wattle and daub can be broken through with enough force. Crime is a real concern in medieval times. Theft is common. Violence is not rare. The law exists, but it's enforced irregularly, and the night offers cover for those with ill intent. You've heard stories of houses broken into, of families robbed, of worse things. You tell yourself that you have little worth stealing, that a thief would choose a wealthier target, but the fear lingers. You try to push these thoughts away. You try to focus on something else, anything else. You think about the work that needs to be done tomorrow. You think about the upcoming holy day. You think about your family, safe here beside you. You pray silently, asking for protection, asking for peace, asking for rest. And then you hear the church bells. The church is at the center of the village, its bell tower rising above the other buildings. The church bells mark the passage of time, ringing for the canonical hours, the divisions of the day and night, according to the monastic schedule. Even though you're not a monk, even though you don't follow the full monastic routine, the bells still ring, and everyone hears them. They ring for Compline at sunset, the final prayers of the day. They ring for matins at midnight, calling the monks to prayer in the deep night. They ring for lauds in the early morning before dawn. Each ringing is long and loud, the bell clanging repeatedly, the sound carrying across the village and the surrounding fields. The midnight bells are ringing now. Matins. The sound is enormously loud, each clang reverberating through the air, through the walls of your cottage, through your very bones. The bell rings and rings and rings. You can't count how many times. You simply wait for it to stop, knowing that sleep is impossible while that sound continues. The bells serve a purpose, of course. They mark the hours when there are no clocks. They call the faithful to prayer. They remind everyone that God is watching, that the church is the center of the community, that spiritual life continues even in the darkest hours. But they also make sleep difficult. Just when you might be drifting off, the bells ring and jolt you awake. The sound is so loud, so penetrating, that there's no ignoring it, no sleeping through it. Finally, the bells stop. The last echoes fade into silence. You lie there, ears ringing slightly, waiting for your heart to slow, waiting for the possibility of sleep to return. And in the silence after the bells you hear something else. Singing. It's faint, coming from the direction of the church. The monks are singing matins, the midnight prayers. The sound is ghostly, ethereal, drifting through the darkness. You can't make out the words, just the rise and fall of the chant, the voices blending together in a kind of harmony. The singing is beautiful in its way, but it's also eerie, this disembodied sound floating through the night. It reminds you of the spiritual realm, of the constant presence of things beyond the physical world. In medieval thinking, the physical and spiritual are not separate. They interpenetrate each other. The singing monks are reaching toward heaven, and heaven, in turn, reaches down toward earth. The night is a thin time, when the boundary between worlds is permeable. The singing continues for a long time, then gradually fades. The monks have finished their prayers and return to their own beds, to their own brief sleep before the next round of prayers. You try again to sleep. You close your eyes. You breathe slowly. You try to relax each part of your body, starting with your feet, moving up through your legs, your torso, your arms, your neck, your face. You try to let go of tension, to let go of awareness, and you begin to succeed. You feel yourself drifting. Your thoughts become less coherent, more dreamlike. Images float through your mind, disconnected and strange. You're on the edge of sleep, that threshold state where consciousness begins to fade. and then you need to urinate. This is another challenge of medieval sleep. There are no bathrooms attached to your sleeping chamber. There's no indoor plumbing at all. If you need to relieve yourself during the night, you have options, but none of them are particularly pleasant. The first option is to hold it until morning. This is what you try to do first. You ignore the pressure in your bladder. You try to think about other things, but the sensation grows stronger. You shift position, trying to find a posture that relieves the pressure, but that doesn't really help. The need becomes more urgent. The second option is to use a chamber pot. This is a ceramic or metal pot kept under the bed or in a corner of the room, specifically for this purpose. You'd have to get out of bed, find the chamber pot in the complete darkness, use it, and then get back into bed. The process would wake you fully. The bed would be cold when you returned to it. You'd have to start the whole process of warming up and trying to fall asleep all over again. And chamber pots have their own drawbacks. They're emptied in the morning, usually just thrown out into the street or into a ditch behind the house. Until then, they sit there in the room with you, smelling. The smell is strong and unpleasant, especially in a small enclosed space. The third option, if you're male, is to go outside to urinate. This means unbolting the door, going out into the cold night, finding a spot away from the house, doing your business, and coming back. It's cold out there, dark and potentially dangerous. You'd be fully exposed to the night air, to whatever might be lurking in the darkness. You lie there, trying to decide what to do, trying to assess how urgent the need really is. Can you make it until morning? Probably not. The pressure is too great. You know from experience that you won't be able to sleep with this sensation growing stronger. Finally, reluctantly, you decide you have to get up. You carefully lift the blankets, trying not to disturb your spouse and children. The cold air hits you immediately, making you gasp. The room is so much colder than the warm nest you've created under the blankets. You sit up, then stand. The floor is icy cold beneath your feet. You can't see anything, so you have to move by memory and by feel. You reach out with your hands, touching the wall, orienting yourself. You shuffle forward carefully, not wanting to trip over anything in the darkness. You find the chamber pot by touch, your hands locating its familiar shape. You use it, and the sound seems enormously loud in the silence. You're certain everyone must be awake now, must have heard, but no one stirs. They're deep in sleep, or at least pretending to be. You set the chamber pot back down carefully, then make your way back to the bed. You lift the blankets and slide back in. The bedding is cold again. All the warmth you'd built up earlier has dissipated. You're shivering. Your feet are like ice. You curl up, pulling the blankets tight around you, waiting for warmth to return. Your spouse mutters, disturbed by your movement and by the cold air you've let into the bed. They shift away from you, away from your cold body, then gradually shift back, sharing warmth again. You lie there, shivering, fully awake again. Any progress you'd made toward sleep has been lost. You have to start over, waiting for warmth, waiting for your body to relax, waiting for your mind to quiet. And as you lie there, you become aware of other physical discomforts. Your stomach is unsettled. Perhaps it was something in the evening meal, or perhaps it's just the normal functioning of a digestive system, fed a diet very different from what modern people eat. Medieval diet is heavy in bread and grain, in pottage and porridge, in foods that are filling but not always easy to digest. You feel gas building in your intestines. It's uncomfortable, creating pressure and cramping. You try to remain still, but eventually you have to release it. The sound is loud in the quiet room. You're embarrassed, even though such things are common and usually ignored in medieval times, where people live in such close quarters that bodily functions cannot be hidden or politely ignored. No one says anything. Your family continues sleeping or continues pretending to sleep. The moment passes, but the discomfort in your stomach remains. You hope you won't need to use the chamber pot again for a different purpose. Diarrhea is common in medieval times, caused by food that's not quite fresh, by water that's not quite clean, by all the unsanitary conditions of daily life. You've experienced it many times before, as has everyone, but you really don't want to deal with it in the middle of the night. Fortunately, the cramping eases. Your stomach settles. You allow yourself to relax again. Outside, an owl hoots. The sound is sudden and clear, surprisingly close. Perhaps the owl is in a tree near your cottage or perched on the roof. It hoots again, a long, drawn-out sound that has an eerie quality to it. Owls are birds of ill omen in medieval folklore. Their cry is said to foretell death. You know this is just superstition, probably, but in the darkness, with your rational mind subdued by exhaustion, such beliefs have power. You whisper a quick prayer of protection. You make the sign of the cross under the blankets, your fingers tracing the familiar pattern in the air. The gesture comforts you, reminds you of God's presence, of protection against the forces of darkness. The owl hoots once more, then falls silent. You hear the soft whoosh of its wings as it takes flight, hunting for mice and voles in the fields around the village. The night continues. Time passes, though you have no way to measure it. It might have been an hour since you first lay down, or 3 hours, or 5. In the complete darkness, with no clock, no way to see the position of the stars or the moon through the closed shutters, time becomes elastic and uncertain. You drift in and out of light sleep, never quite achieving deep rest, never quite fully awake. This liminal state is frustrating. Your body is exhausted, but your mind won't let go completely. Every sound pulls you back toward wakefulness. Every discomfort keeps you from sinking into true sleep. You hear more noises from outside. Somewhere in the distance, a woman screams. The sound is sharp and terrified, making your blood run cold. The scream cuts off abruptly. You lie there, rigid, listening for more, wondering what happened. Was it violence, an attack, or perhaps a woman having a nightmare, or in the throes of childbirth? You hear voices, urgent and worried, people emerging from their houses to investigate. You hear men calling to each other, footsteps running. You hear the village gradually stirring, pulled from sleep by the scream, but you don't get up. You stay in bed, listening. Whatever has happened, you tell yourself, others are dealing with it. You don't need to become involved. You need rest. You have work tomorrow. You pull the blankets tighter and try to block out the sounds. Gradually, the commotion outside dies down. The voices fade. The footsteps retreat. Whatever crisis occurred, it's over, or at least has been addressed. The night returns to its previous state, full of small sounds but no major disturbances. And now, lying here in the darkness, having been awake for so long, you begin to experience something that medieval people knew well, but that we've largely lost in modern times: the practice of the 2 sleeps. Thank you for joining me on this journey through medieval sleep. I hope this exploration of why sleeping in medieval times was so challenging has been relaxing and interesting. We've covered the evening preparations, the uncomfortable sleeping environment, and the many sounds and disturbances that would keep you awake through the night. Remember to like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from in the comments. Sleep well, and good night.